On this episode of AV Week, Almo is purchased by Exertis, what that means for manufacturers as well as customers, taking a look at a new Java exploit and how you get your customers to let you to upgrade their systems. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 539, recorded Friday, December 17th, 2021. Distributed mergers.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Draper and by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. We have got a doozy this week. We've got three fantastic ladies. This is the last news week of the year. We've got two more shows. One's a best of, one's a what would we learn this year. Let's start with the young lady I've seen most recently in person, Gina Sansevero from Atlas IED, and I got to hang out with her in New York just last weekend. So how are you, ma'am?
I am doing very well, and that was a fun evening. Thank you for coming out. It was amazing.
Well, thank you for arranging it. I took my daughter to New York as part of her Christmas, and Gina was nice enough to arrange a really, really kick-ass a bunch of AV folks. So that was really, really cool. So I'm not sure which of you other two that I've seen most recently. So we'll start with Dawn. Dawn Mead, we don't say where she works, but she is on the East Coast, my Maryland, D.C. area. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, thanks. And, glad to be on the show again.
Absolutely. And last but not least, this young lady that works for someplace new from last time we spoke, Lauren Simon from Crestron. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. How are you?
I am well. Not for nothing, but as a lifelong Cardinals fan, I have two Mets fans in my midst. Both Lauren and Gina are both. I won't talk about what we used to call Mets in the '80s, but you can Google it and look it up. So it wasn't very nice. Let's just put it that way. First story comes to us from everybody and their brother, including AVNation. News this week hit that our friends over at Almo got purchased by our friends over at Exertis. Exertis is owned by DCC Technology, overarching corporation, DCC PLC. We did an interview with both Warren Chaikin and the gentleman from Exertis as well. He's like, we don't talk about the fact that DCC, just because it's like the massive corporation. So we just kind of refer to it as Exertis from there on out in the interview. We did an interview. Mitchell will do fantastic work and put a link to that interview on this episode's page. But one of the things between Clive Fitzharris and Warren Chaikin that they both kind of made 100% known is that this is to help the brands, but also help the customers. One of the pieces out of the interview that shocked me is the fact that the overlap in customer base is less than 50%. And what that means is that the customers that Exertis has, and really quickly, Exertis, if you've lost track of your scorecard, used to be called Stampede 2 years ago, right? So that is kind of where we're at here. Their customers they share less than 50% of their customers, so it helps them in their customer base. It helps them with their vendor relations. Almo, a whole lot of AV folks don't realize they also have an appliance division. That's how Almo started. High-end appliances. They have deals with Best Buy and a bunch of other stores. So it's a significant deal for both groups. Warren, who I've known for forever and a day, is a fantastic just human being in general. He's like, we get to keep the family together because it was a family-owned business. Now it's a family-run business, to quote Warren. Don, I'm going to start with you as the end user on this. When deals like this happen, what does the end user part of you say? What are you concerned about? What is it, or what are you excited about in deals like this?
I'm kind of almost exactly split on how I feel about it.
Okay.
Because on the one hand, it's great news. We have access to things that we didn't have access to previously, that by going through our Almo rep, so to speak, that we might not have had access to if we weren't set up with Stampede or Exertis. And And so, and they also get, of course, better buying power with the manufacturers and that sort of thing. A little more priority when you're talking to one of the big behemoths as opposed to the little guys, you know. But on the other hand, it's kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. And not to totally sidetrack the show right at the top, but we're in the midst of the greatest supply chain collapse in history. And right now, all of the integrators and a lot of us end users are going, oh crap, we need these things by the end of the year. Where are we going to get them? Our regular guys don't have them. Hey, let me call these other guys that are distributor that I know have a warehouse. They might have them. Let me try this third group. And by merging together like that, we're getting, you know, a few less names in our back pocket to whip out in a situation like this that, you know, is kind of unusual circumstances. But I think in the long run, putting aside the supply chain concerns, it is going to be a good move. You know, like I said, it gives you more access to more lines and more availability and better pricing. But right now, it's kind of like we could have used a separate company because those warehouses are empty and we don't know when stuff's coming. So,
Gina, we'll continue with this with you. Both you and Lauren work for manufacturers. So how does this, how does this impact your guys' outlook? Because Dawn's right. Suddenly now, instead of 2 clients or 2 vendors, you've got 1.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly it impacts us from a sales standpoint. We have to consolidate how we're going to manage deployment to 2 different distributors, which, is an internal problem that we all have to deal with. So no big deal. We've been doing it for a long time with all of these mergers and acquisitions now. So I think our accounting department and our sales ops people have gotten used to that. I think from our standpoint, when you have an organization that consolidates like this, it helps our integrator partners. And the reason why I say that is because right now, integrators are dealing with supply chain shortages, but they're also dealing with really condensed project timelines. So what was put on hold has now started up again. And when that happens, cash flow becomes a real issue. You have to buy a ton of product for a short amount of time, but you're not going to get paid until that project is commissioned. And if you're waiting on an amplifier to commission that project, you might be waiting a couple of months, right? So at this point, if you can go through distribution, they generally have better terms. They generally have better pricing models, and they might be able to help your cash flow. So when you have the buying power of a distributor consolidated like this, and their extension, their arm, becomes a little bit longer into the manufacturer's kind of coffers there, they might be able to help our integrator partners complete projects or at least extend their terms so that they're not so squeezed on their cash flow.
All right, Lauren, same kind of question. You've worked for a number of manufacturers. Gina's right about, consolidating everything into one warehouse. But also, looking at it from a standpoint of choice, right? Now, certain integrators only have, they've only got to be able to one choice. One of the things that both Warren and Clive mentioned was the ability to package deals, right? And distributors have the unique ability, or a unique ability, to take a look at a solution and go, oh, I can use this from Crestron, I can use this from Atlas, and I can use this from this one over here, package it together, and here you go, Mr. and Mrs. Integrator. So what does this look like for you from your perspective as again, somebody who's worked for a couple different manufacturers?
Yeah, I mean, listen, both Dawn and Gina said a lot of great things, particularly about supply chain. When you bring distributors like this together that both have potentially different levels of inventory, right, it does open up the amount of products that you can access. So if you have a project that you just can't, you have to finish, but you may not have the right part, with a distribution merger like this, you have some capabilities to go, okay, I need something that does X, Y, and Z. Yes, I spec'd in this, but maybe something else can get us to that point and get us what we need without having to completely redo the entire installation. So that does open up more possibilities. The other thing with kitting is it got opened up a couple of years ago. Some of the mid-tier distributors really started doing it and taken on is being able to pack, pull, and ship as an order. And so instead of having to go out to 3 or 4 different distributors and say, okay, I need 5 products here, 10 here, 15 there, all that can get kitted as to and shipped out as one order going directly to the job site, making the installation side of it a lot simpler.
I was just going to say my last thought on the whole story was my first thought when I read it. And that's, wow, it's going to be really hard to fit hashtag Exertis Almo E4V Expo on a tweet and still have room to talk about it.
No, you also forgot about the big book of AV in there too, because that's what Stampede's regional show, and that is one of the things that we don't know yet, right? And something I learned from the corporate side, I understand. So Almo, it was a family-owned, family-run business. DCC is a publicly traded company, and I am so trying not to get sued here. There were things that they couldn't discover and find out about each other until the deal was done, right? From a legal SEC is a football. SEC, Security and Exchange Commissions. SEC standpoint, there were things that they couldn't talk about, right? That was probably one of them. And so we don't quite know where the Exertis side is with the big book of AV and their regional shows. And like Dawn said, the E4 experience. So yeah, that'll be something that we know.
If I may add, I've been through this on both sides, right? I've been through being acquired by a publicly traded company when I was a privately held company. And Tim, you hit the nail on the head, right? There's going to be things that they find out, but I'm sure with companies like this, the due diligence is done very, very well. And, it should be a pretty smooth process.
Oh, I was going to say, and I think Gary Kay is fully prepared to do his next E4 keynote with the Stampede girls on either side of him. So
they got rid of the Stampede girl. That was the thing, is when Exertis took over, somebody said something about, there goes the Cowboys and the Gates, right? the hoedown and Infocom. It was gone this year, right? When Exertis took over, the whole Stampede thing was it's a lot more streamlined and slick now. So
I'm curious to hear if there are any challenges or how smooth the transition goes with that kind of residential appliance side of things, right? This organization that is so pro AV focused and might dabble in some IT and potentially some security is now an appliance distributor.
That is one of those things. So Sam, that has helped start up the Pro AV division of Almo, right? He is, my understanding, he is going to still stay on the Pro AV side, and that is going to be kind of like the Exertis side, right? Now, I 100% could be talking out of turn here, but that is my understanding, is that the Exertis side is going to be kind of the AV side, but the Almo side is still going to have the hooks into the appliance, into that distributor, right? So Sam Taylor is, they're kind of combined. Sam Taylor is the gentleman who helped start the Pro AV section of Almo. He is going to do kind of an Exertis Almo Pro AV side, and then Warren is going to stick on the Almo appliance side, is my understanding. But as we've all just kind of said, discovery and the integration of this is going to take a minute. So I don't think that any of us, and I'm certain that they don't know yet either, how all that will shake out.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, and I think Dawn makes a point, though, that I think most likely we just lost another regional show too. Most likely, and how they market that and what they call it, we'll have to wait and see. Next story, actually, we'll talk about Java here for a second. And no, I'm not talking about coffee. I really wish I was. So Java is still used in a number of servers, a number of IT devices, but also in a handful of AV gear. There is a vulnerability currently, as we sit here and record this on December 17th. It is called Log4j. Do not ask me why it's called that. I do not know. What I do know is that it's a vulnerability and it is impacting a whole lot of software. The story we're using is from My Tech Decisions. You can go to The Verge. You can probably go to Gizmodo and find out, a whole lot of stuff. Gina, I'm going to start with you on this. As a manufacturer, I am not saying that Atlas has gear that is affected by this. What I am saying, though, you guys have a lot of software. Crestron has a lot of software, right? How do you encourage your dealers and their customers to keep stuff updated when it still works, right? It's working. So why the heck should I update it just because of some log4j thing?
Well, that's a really good question. It's funny. I hadn't heard. I've been on the road a bit this week, and I hadn't heard about it until my teams blew up. And that's because our product management, engineering, sales, groups were all talking and going, what do we have to tell our customers? And it turns out that they did their due diligence. They worked through our SKUs that, would have or could have been affected, and none of them are affected. Thank goodness, right? But holy mackerel, did it cause a bit of a rumble for a couple of days. And they did everything that they could to ensure that they did not miss one product when doing this full evaluation. So kudos to the team for doing that. But this is also why we have consistent communications outwardly with our customers to ensure that they know this is the software, this is the firmware update, or this is a software update. These are the fixes that are being implemented during this update. You need to know all of this, and all of the firmware gets application notes that are 100%, kind of there to encourage them to be able to update them frequently. I get it. Very often, integrator is really afraid to touch a system after it's been working for an extended period of times because, I run a PC. I get it, right? You update something, something else breaks. But when it comes to things like security, that becomes a real challenge. So, like I said, we are very transparent and consistent in our communications outwardly. We make sure that they are aware of all of the fixes that are included, and then it's ultimately up to them. But we try to make it as easy as possible. So there's multiple ways to download firmware. If you're able to get internet access on site, great. If you can't, then we have other ways of giving you the files. So we do try to make it as easy as possible.
All right, Lauren, same kind of question. How do you communicate this? And is it a carrot? Is it a stick method when it comes to getting dealers to upgrade this stuff?
2 years ago, I would have said there's a stick, right? But now the channel, whether it's residential or commercial, have really gotten a lot better about understanding the risks and the vulnerabilities when it comes to security. They are our own police in some instances. They are pushing a lot harder for better security, better measures, better protocols over and over again. So we look at that, obviously going through all the product development side, making sure, is this going to pass government security? And a lot of our products already are certified for government, so that helps us on the downside, or for every other channel. But really, it's something that our integrators, if they're not thinking about now, have to start thinking about. I haven't met one that hasn't brought up the security question in one way, shape, or form. But in terms of communication, same thing Gina said, right? We went back, looked at all of our products, made sure nothing was affected. If it was, fixed it, and then constant communications out to our customers, whether or not the products were affected, saying, hey, we saw this, we understand it, just so you know, this is what we've done, these are the protocol, the measures that we've taken, just so that everybody knows, okay, we're good, so it's been something just cross off their list. But, like I said, a couple of years ago, it was more of a stick mentality. Now our integrators are coming to us and saying, hey, and they're coming with a lot better questions than they used to have up in the beginning parts of the process of, is this 802.1x certified? Can I use this in these applications? And it's helped us know how we have to build products, but it's a lot better of a partnership on the security side than it was not too long ago.
And Lauren, I think part of why it's become so important over the last 2 years is it's also part of the service an integrator offers now, right? Whereas before it was they have to charge to come back out on site to make sure that all of this was done. Now, through remote monitoring and access, with the exception of possibly a corporation like Dawn's, you can do so much of this off-site and include it as part of your scope of work for, service contracts and things like that. So it has become easier, but it's also become a selling point.
And just to add on to that, right, we've seen it with work from home and the explosion of devices being off the internal network. having to have more increased security measures so that their home networks are much more vulnerable than one that's going to be in a financial building in Manhattan. So the IT teams have taken that step to understand that, hey, we have these products that are now all over the place. We have these whether it's AV or whether it's just your PC, there's vulnerability there that if they can get in, then they can run amok. And so thankfully, the industry has really stepped up their game with that over the last couple of years. So hopefully this doesn't cause too much of a ripple effect in the industry. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. There are a couple websites you can go to. Check out JITC approved product, and as well as DODIN, DODIN approved products. Dawn, I'm going to take two separate angles with you. We have not said where you work. You do work on the East Coast, around the Maryland and DC area. No, she doesn't work for the government. Okay. So take this from both you as current Dawn, as someone who works inside this corporation, but also when you used to work for an integrator and did work inside, let's say, alphabet agencies, organizations, and their systems. Now, does this scare you? Does this process? How do you feel about not just this vulnerability, but also upgrading and updating systems when they are working?
This scares me, but not as badly as it did a few years ago. And I think what Lauren said is right. We have stepped up as an industry in the past few years. But Tim, I think you said it at the Almo show a week or two ago, whenever the heck that was online. It's been 20 years since we were at that Infocom that was like, oh my God, convergence. And we're just getting there the past couple of years at this, okay, we're IT savvy or we're hiring IT savvy people. And there's still a heck of a lot of guys out there, and guys in the unisex, non-gendered form, that aren't IT savvy, that don't know a ports and protocols document, that don't have a basis in cybersecurity or even just basic network stuff, let alone cybersecurity. And so it's those integrators and those companies that are the ones that should be really worried, not just about this vulnerability, but about their future business. Because the more and more we do AV over IP and all of these other interconnected, same technology things, it's going to come up more and more often. And I know 15 years ago or 20 years ago, the one integrator I was working for had a customer in a polygon-shaped building right outside of DC that is very secure. And at the time, Polycom was the VTC system we had in there, and it needed a firmware upgrade. Can't take a laptop in that building, and you can't take a thumb drive in that building. And there's sure as heck in that building and in that room specifically, there is no internet connection. And it comes down to having to know that there is an update that is vital and it is mission critical, and being able to communicate that with the IT people that you need to either provide me with a secure internet access and a secure connection so that I can upgrade this, or you're going to have a vulnerable system, and explain to the generals why they cannot talk to people in theater. And so it comes down to there's a time that these vulnerabilities really hit some secure places that really aren't able to just have a remote management login and take care of things and it works. Sometimes you got to poke the bear. If it's running fine, but there is a known issue, you got to fix it. You can't take the chance that no one's going to stumble upon it, And so in that regard, I mean, if you're sitting there watching this and you're an integrator and you don't have IT people on staff, you better get to HR and start hiring or send your guys to school, because at this point, I mean, there's no excuse for it. And in my current role as an end user, checking with, trying to interview integrators around the country for different jobs, if I don't already know that integrator, there are people that still don't know what a ports and protocols document is. And even just knowing that term exists and knowing to ask, hey, Gina, what ports does your company and your product need? Hey, Lauren, what does Crestron need to work on the network and to do what it needs to do? And then take those issues to the IT department for clearing. Because, in our type of world, you don't bring in a product unless it has been blessed by IT, blessed by cybersecurity, blessed by 12 other groups, and on the JITIC approved lists. So, it's a very serious issue for our industry. We're getting better, but we got a long way to go, and it's been 20 years we've been talking about it, guys. Come on.
I still love the fact, and now just so credit goes where the credit due, I did not recall nor see that sign. It was my buddy Kevin Iselli, who happens to work for Crestron. He still has the picture, by the way. And every once in a while, when somebody will do something stupid, Kevin will send me that picture in a text just to say, we're still not there, dude. But yeah, absolutely. Really quickly, because Dawn mentioned something there, and that is, if you don't have IT people, absolutely get yourself some, right? Whether that is here in St. Louis, Rankin Technologies is a local trade school that if you're in this area and you're not talking to them, you absolutely should be. Talk to the trade schools, talk to and talk to the high schools, right? And that are teaching this. 100% get yourself in line and start talking with those recruiters and those career counselors, as because they're the ones who see the men and women that are coming up through the ranks and start pointing them your way. So,
and if you're at a big company like mine, and every summer you get thousands of little interns coming in from the universities, most of whom are IT majors of some sort, grab some of them and teach them about AV. If you're with the AV team, say, hey, I know you think you're a programmer, or I know you think you're cyber guy. Come check out what we do. We play with the cool toys, and you get to do your stuff.
Yeah.
I had an integrator about a year and a half ago tell me that as they were hiring these people, and there was internal issues because they weren't speaking the same language, because AV and IT is a different language. They actually wrote an internal dictionary of what the AV term meant and what the appropriate IT term was, and they made all of their team understand it. So when they were having conversations with consultants or with end users, they used the right language for the right person. I was like, that is genius.
It's like the Rosetta Stone. Where can we get one?
A, that's genius, and I would like a copy, but B, I taught a class on that at Infocom the last time I went, on communication, and we don't speak the same language. Figure it out. My program, where I work, means something completely different than an AV person's program, than an IT person's program. In my case, it's the project that everybody's working on. But, you don't know what someone means when they say that term.
Yeah, I love that. And Lauren, I'm with Dawn. I would love a copy of that too. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. I mentioned the fact this is our last kind of regular one for the year. We'll be back the first Friday of January. I may be a little harried because I'm going to CES for the first time. That's a whole other story, and I'll tell that story on that Friday. But next week will be our best of, and then the week after that we'll do our year-end review things. So thank you guys so much for joining us this year. Gina Sansevero, how do people connect with you or Atlas IED?
Well, I want to say first, since it's our last show, Happy New Year, everybody! Looking forward to a great 2022, and I hope everybody is very safe but jovial in their celebrations. You can find me on Twitter at Gina Sans or at Atlas_IED, and on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And then finally, if you are interested in dogs or food, Instagram. I'm on Instagram, Gina Sansevero.
Both on the food. Well, the food is incredible because I've never tasted her Italian cooking. It just looks fantastic. So.
Oh, thank you.
Lauren Simon, good to see you again, ma'am. How do people connect with you or Crestron?
With me, either on Twitter or LinkedIn, Lauren Simon, and then for Crestron, all the social channels, our website, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the above.
All right, very good. And Miss Dawn Mead, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I can't tell you where I work or I'd have to shoot you. But you can always find me on the socials. If I'm not AV Dawn, which I am on Twitter and Insta and TikTok and Snap and whatever. But if I'm not AV Dawn, I'm Dawn Mead. You can look me up. It's spelled just like the fort. And you can always find me here on AVNation.tv, hosting AV Social, and popping on this show as much as Tim will let me, because it's fun to sit and hang out with my friends virtually. And like Gina said, I hope everyone has a very happy New Year and a happy whichever of the hundreds of winter holidays you and your faith and your family might practice or not practice. Happy Festivus for the rest of us.
I'm just going to do it with solstice from now on.
Just make a steak instead of the animal sacrifice they frown on at these days. So.
Really? Because I'm actually making a brisket this weekend, so it's kind of like an animal sacrifice.
There you go. That's
there.
Cool.
You go.
Yeah.
All right. A couple things. Don't follow me on the Twitters because at this point I really, really am regretting my life decision of being a Bears fan. But go by the websites, if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including Dawn's fantastic AV Social, which apparently just posted. Just Mitchell didn't tell anybody. Totally throwing him under the bus for that because he keeps making funny gifs of me. And I'll probably get another one now, which is fine. A couple of things. If you enjoyed the Gina and Tim portion of this podcast, and you're listening to this on Monday, the 20th, you can kind of recreate this in addition to two people that are at least smarter than me, Gary Kay and Rich Ventura, because Gina and I are going to be on Rich's webinar, RV on AV, at 1 o'clock Eastern on the 21st of December. So it's still awesomeness with Gina and then Rich and Gary. So you can check that out. It's Rich's thing with Sony. He's been doing it for quite a while, so you can check that out. Also, I mentioned the fact that we've got a couple things coming down the pipeline. I'm going to CES. If you're going to CES, cool, awesome, groovy. Hit me up and let me know. I'm going to be in Long Beach, Southern California for Crestron's next the 12th and 13th, I think, of January. 100% heading to ISE unless the Spanish government tells me I can't. And then, holy crap, we have a busy February and March on top of that. ISC West, DSD, Enterprise Connect. So hit us up and follow us on the website. We'll have all those landing pages and stuff like that. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time I have for AV Week.